Ladies and gentlemen, grab your drinks and popcorn. Today's feature is about to begin. Welcome to Celluloid Codswallop. Hello and welcome to this week's Celluloid Codswallop, and for this week's episode we are going to be discussing a very, very interesting film. We are returning to the world of fashion, which is what happened when we were reviewing the miniseries Halston. But on this week's episode we are reviewing a film called The House of Gucci, and I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion. I am joined by someone who, it's very interesting, to describe the relationship we have is going to be an interesting thing for the Salty Tadpoles, because you know those times when you look in your phone and you find a number and you don't recognise who the number belongs to, so you send them a text saying, "Oh, it's great, I've just found I've got your number," and I got probably one of the nicest responses ever to instead of just like the usual, who the hell is this, I don't know. I got a very nice response from my wonderful, lovely co-host Joanne, which was, "That's grand, but who is this?"
Yeah, I was actually out having a meal with Team Moist, my buddies, and it came through and I went, I have no fucking idea who this is. As we're leaving that, and I went, still don't know who it was.
It's like, you could respond with the thing of, oh, how soon they forget.
I know. I actually did say to them, I said, it's got to be a man. And I bet you right now they're insulted that my knickers didn't fall off.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously I was. With that knowledge that you've now given me, there is a level of insult where it does hurt somewhat. It was, what amused me more is that neither of us actually knew we had each other's phone numbers.
No, I mean, it didn't come up. Your number was changed my phone about 6 months ago, but generally speaking, it's not like the old days with the old Nokia bricks where you had to type in every bloody phone number that you had. Sorry, folks, those of you that are like a lot younger than us. Yes, it used to happen, and that wasn't really that long ago. And so I don't know why when it didn't port your name over with the number. It was weird.
It's all right. Well, I've saved you in the phone now. But the thing that I don't understand is I didn't have any idea, and this is not against you, John. You know I love you, but I had no idea that I have all your other contact details, but I had no idea I had the number in there. So I was confused. But I've just thought of something that you mentioned. I changed my phone, so it could be something to do with that. Who knows? But we've got contact with each other anyway.
Yeah. I thought there's another way for James to stalk me now on WhatsApp as well as Messenger. Yep. You've got to love when I'm asked the question of who I am. The clue I gave. I gave you is a good one. Yeah, had to be Miami Vice. Had to be.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I thought, is that James? And I thought, you see if this is somebody else that I've known for yonks ago and who's maybe been, let's just say, inappropriate in some way. And now they sent me a message and I call them another name. I thought, this could go really, really badly. You could be somebody who I get a stream of abuse. What do you mean? It's not blah, blah, blah. It's such and such and so and so. I'm thinking, let's see how this one goes. So I was really relieved when you came back and said, yes, that's right, it's James. I thought, oh, thank goodness for that. Because I get some really weird messages through sometimes.
Yes, not just from me.
Well, no, yours are always welcome. Some of them, I'm just thinking, what do you want me to say to that? Just because you dress up, some people get funny ideas.
You have mentioned that to me in the past before. I remember that you can meet some very unique people. But I like the fact that we mentioned Miami Vice, because Miami Vice was a big thing of fashion at the time, which moves us perfectly on to the film The House of Gucci. And interestingly, when looking at this film, you and I had discussed this very early on, probably in the same kind of vein of when we watched Halston, which is we saw the trailer and thought, this looks really good. And I remember the conversation we had with each other, which was, well, basically saying this would be a really good follow-on to Halston to review. The other interesting thing that I can link it into to Halston was a conversation you and I had when we reviewed Halston, which was that the Halston perfume was one that I remember my mother having when I was as a child, as using. And I have a memory of her having a few Gucci handbags. So it all kind of meets in the middle somewhere with me.
Yes, the perfume still intrigues me. I still love to sniff that perfume. I think it would just be... Because Halston, I still have so much love for that series. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Now, I was on the Banterflix podcast, and I did a very quick review of Gucci. And I did mention about Halston in it. They cut some bits out because I probably waffled on for too long, so they had to cut bits out. And probably the bits that are left in, I still don't look any saner than they probably. I still look insane. I said a lot more insane things, and those were probably about the best bits they're going to get. But I did mention the Halston series because as a recommendation because I thought it was great. I'm almost scared to say. I think everybody's who's listening to this will figure out very early on what my thoughts are on Gucci compared to Halston.
What I will say that's great on this Salty Tadpoles is the fact that Joanne doesn't forget about us as just a podcast. I mean, she's hit the heights of being on TV. She's been on a TV show discussing this, but she still will come back and spend time with little old me, even when she doesn't know who I am on messages. So,
well, let's face it, I kind of shafted you, as it were, last Friday. James, can you go and do this podcast in Halston because I've lost my wallet and I'm completely distracted. I don't really want to sit and talk to people that night as my friend is wrecking her house looking for my wallet.
It was a welcome message, though, because when the thing was beeping, I'm going to be honest, because, again, I'm honest with the Salty Tadpole. I'm honest with you and Jen when I told you. I thought it was somebody else ringing me. So I was sat in my study going, for fuck's sake, stop fucking ringing. And then I went and looked at it, I was like, it's Joanne. Excellent. That's a welcome phone call. So that was good. But I thought it was something else ringing me where I was like, God damn it, stop ringing.
I've been there. So you can look out for James because I'm sure you will share it anyway. James will be on the Banterflix podcast. That's a local one to Northern Ireland, discussing the House of Gucci.
But let's not detract from what we're going to be discussing here. So it's an interesting story. It's based on a real life story, and the cast itself is a very interesting cast. And I remember when I first ever saw this, anything to do with this, I was like, is this a TV? Is it like going to be like Halston? Is it going to be a small mini-series set up for it? But it's a big, giant, epic film done by Ridley Scott. And it's got a great cast. Obviously, Lady Gaga is in there. Adam Driver. Jeremy Irons is in it. Al Pacino. Who else? We've got Jared Leto. The cast. Salma Hayek, yeah.
Yep.
The cast is like a knock your socks off cast for this film. What did you think of the cast they put together on this? Were you impressed by it in just the sheer grouping of the cast?
It didn't really matter to me in some ways who the cast was because I didn't really enjoy the movie.
Ooh,
and I know that
the knife is in early. Now
the knife's in early. Actually, to be honest, I think a cast that wasn't recognizable. Well, Jared Leto definitely wasn't recognizable because I didn't even know that was him, even though he was one of the only favorite characters of mine. I think a cast that wasn't well known might have actually been better for this movie, to be perfectly honest.
My fear is that when the years hit me, when I get older, that I will end up looking like Jared Leto's character in this film.
It's because of the hair, isn't it?
Yeah, if I end up looking like Paolo Gucci, if I end up like that, I just tell me to shave my head. The film it is based on a real event. Obviously, people know the House of Gucci, who they are, in the sense of the business itself, the clothing line. And it's interesting when you're taking a look at what happened to this and where they were coming from, because this film is sort of looking in the 70s and going, I think, into the 80s and possibly into the 90s. it's showing a transformational period for Gucci, because really at the start of this film they're a known brand, they're a love brand, but they are of their time. They are frozen in what they do. Mm-hmm. And Al Pacino's character Aldo Gucci does not want to make changes to what the product is. It's a fair assumption to say when this film begins, because Patricia Reggiani, who is Lady Gaga's character, is an outsider to all this. She comes from quite a humble family. They run I think it's a shipping business, a transportation business, and you would think the Gucci family would not be someone who she would have access to, but in the case of Maurizio Gucci, who is Adam Driver's part, he doesn't really want the family, does he? He's not that interested in being part of this giant dynasty of clothing and, I think it's perfume as well. They do manufacturing business. He's not that interested, but they meet at a party.
Yeah, I mean, all I could think of was, this is the time that Kylo Ren and Lady Gaga set up a fashion empire, and it really went very badly wrong for them. I could not get beyond Kylo Ren. All I could see was this big nose and huge glasses. For 2 hours and 50 minutes, it was big nose and huge glasses. I have no objection to big nose. My nose is hardly small. But it was just, and dodgy hair. And no. I just didn't. Whenever they met, right, they meet at the party. And to me, there's Lady Gaga just comes across as a complete looper. Once she realizes who he is, it's like, oh, the target sets in and she's, money.
Yes.
But he's just, his acting is terrible to me. But all the way through this movie.
The interesting thing for a while on this film, though, is that you kind of got, I could be wrong, but was there kind of like a feeling that she almost didn't know who he was, or who was big and important as he was? Because was he trying to not keep a real distance?
You're not sure whether she genuinely doesn't know who he is to start off with, or whether she realizes early on who he is, and that's why she stalks him to the library.
I think there is an element of that she probably does want to sink her claws in. So you probably are right. So backtracking my earlier comment, I will say the suavest looking guy in this is probably Jeremy Irons' character, who is, he's, if I'm correct, Maurizio's father, isn't he? He's Rodolfo Gucci. But his accent is just weird in this. It does not feel... I love Jeremy Irons. He's weird, but I love him as an actor. Mm-hmm. But his accent ability seems to be really weird in a lot of the stuff he does, because surprisingly, his accent wasn't too bad in when he was in the TV show Watchmen, but he was in a film called Margin Call, and his accent was sliding all over the place. It was weird.
Yeah, I think the problem with Jeremy Irons is Jeremy Irons is Jeremy Irons in a Jeremy Irons production.
Yes.
And he's always Jeremy Irons. And people say that about Robert De Niro and who's in this, funny enough. Who else did they say about...
You mean Al Pacino? Robert De Niro isn't in this film.
That's right. I was getting
it's all right.
They're interchangeable in my head, those two boys.
Yeah. And for the fun of it, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not editing that out.
No, don't. No, that's just me making a dick of myself. And they're just interchangeable. They're kind of that era, the great actors. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, no, Jeremy, it's not working, son. I mean, talking about accents, they definitely, this cast, particularly Gaga and Kylo Ren, they went to the Super Mario School of Acting. I expected at any point to go, hey, Luigi, hey, Mario, and then to run along, and it would have been boxes of Gucci shoes, that they were banging their heads off, because the accents were terrible. They were absolutely awful.
I will be, for Lady Gaga, she was better than I thought she would be in this, because
Yes.
the first thing I ever saw her on, and I did mention this on the Bandflix pod, the first thing I ever remember seeing her in acting wise was when she was in Sin City sequel, and she was only in it for a very short space of time, but she wasn't particularly good in it, so I had low expectations of her work. But in this, I really, really was impressed. I'm going to be honest, in this film, and I've always liked her, I fancied the pants off her in this. Now, whether there's something wrong with me that I want some woman who's going to completely mistreat me, what it says about me, my personality, I don't know, but I really fancied her in this. So
I think you need to just stick to fighting a good dom, James, because at least you've got a safe word there. And you know that she's not going to finally turn around and get you killed. Yes, I agree. Actually, Lady Gaga was very good. It was just the accent was atrocious. I was reading something on Wikipedia earlier that apparently the voice coach for the film was a bit disappointed because Gaga kept sounding more Russian than Italian to her. So she didn't quite nail it right. But, I mean, she does come across, she plays crazy really well, Gaga.
Yes.
She plays manipulative and crazy extremely well. I'll give her Of the two actors, Adam Driver was not very good. I thought he was extremely bland.
I have to agree. It really does feel, watching this film, that he kind of dialed it in. Now, but the interesting thing is, he came off another Ridley Scott production, I believe, straight onto this, which he came off what's it called? Is it The Last Duel or something?
He played a Frenchman, didn't he, or something? Yeah. I was reading earlier.
He came off that to make this film, but I mean, the beauty of this film that's interesting is, and to completely, normally what Joe and I do on a lot of reviews, we'll do a scene by scene, but it's quite difficult on this one because A, I can't watch it, and B, it's not something that's conducive to do. It's a long film. I still want to do that with Zack Snyder's Justice League. I want to do a complete breakdown with you, but it would take, probably with the way we will discuss films, probably about like 8 or 9 weeks for us to do that. But I am going
Gemma
to
would
say,
fucking kill us.
Yeah, I am going to say I can give you a DC connection on this film because we always try and find out. The obvious one is Jeremy Irons, Alfred.
Well, yes,
that's the big one. Yeah, that's the big
Watchmen.
One. There's Watchmen. There's when he played Alfred in the Batman vs Superman. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, the most obvious one.
Yeah, the obvious one. I mean, I was giving you that, Joanne. I was hoping you'd get the fact that I said that initially, but it's all right. I like the fact you went to Watchmen. What else could we do as a good link? Well, we can obviously do a comic book link with stuff like, to a degree, Adam Driver with Star Wars. You've got Lady Gaga and the Sin City Dame to Kill For stuff. Is there anybody else we can do a comic book or DC link to?
Jared Leto not the Joker?
Oh, I want to hug you. How did I forget that?
Yeah,
How did I forget that? How did I forget that? Jared Leto, of course. Yeah, I'm sure I said to Gemma about this that I could find more DC links, but you're right. So we've got Jared Leto as the Joker. We've got Jeremy Irons as Alfred. So we've found the DC link. Our souls are saved. Well, mine is.
And obviously there's Robert De Niro as Superman.
If Robert De Niro's in this, you'd be all right, because Robert De Niro, you could make is the fact that he's also in The Joker. So, but he's not in this. It's Al Pacino. I'm really looking forward
as well.
I'm really looking forward to the end of this when we give this marks out of 10, because if this is where we are now, by the end of it.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's 2 hours and 50 fucking minutes long. I thought, would somebody please rescue me now? Because this film never ends. It never ends. I swear it's still going on. It's still playing somewhere.
I am disappointed by the fact that I mentioned giving it marks out of 10, and Joanne did not run with my obvious joke.
I didn't know. I think I'm having some sort of like Nam type flashback to this film of the horror that I went through, thinking this is just holy shit. Why is this not Halston?
See, I did like the the visualization of this film, because to give the Salty Tadpole some idea, it obviously revolves around a fashion brand. You have Lady Gaga's character who comes from humble stock, and as you said, Joanne, probably says to herself, right, this guy's got loads of money. I'll get with him. It'll be great. Initially doesn't like stuff's going to happen because he basically doesn't want to be involved with the family. Adam Driver, he wants to go and work at her trucking business, well, a family trucking business, and he does actually go and work there. Now, because he goes to Lady Gaga's character, Gareth's father, and basically asks for a hand. Now, they work at the trucking place. Now, supposedly, I was prepared, expecting some like amazing sex scene in this film, because Graham Norton, when he interviewed them both, had said what a great sex scene it was, which is where they have sex in like the porter cabin.
Yeah, sorry, I went there.
I mean, it was an okay sex scene, but didn't exactly knock my socks off.
Oh no, I think my virginity grew back again after that. That was just there's no spark between the two actors. I don't think at all. I'll
say for the sex scene, it had an element of real. It was realistic. Yeah. I don't know how we've seen this being so wonderful, but what I did like on this film is when you're looking at the Gucci family, because the lot of them are mad as a box of frogs. Whether it's because they've got all this money, but like when you see them playing, is it like touch football? And they're beating the crap out of each other. There's no there's no gentleness to this at all.
No, there really wasn't. And it's funny, like, because the film does swing kind of from camp,
yes,
to just dreary. And even Tom Ford had watched it. He said it was like surviving through a hurricane watching the movie.
Well, he is portrayed in it, isn't he? And he's portrayed reasonably well. But you're right, because this film, like, if we look at the way it initially starts out, and I'm not going to keep doing names, I don't want to maul the pronunciations, etc., of the people it's based on, but it's based on real people, and you're seeing that, to be fair, Lady Gaga's character, as you said, really is scheming, because she ingratiates herself into the family, and she tries to kind of motivate each of them to do something on her behalf. But you have the problem is that the patriarchal run of the firm is through Al Pacino's character, who basically he stayed in the way he does things, and he's saying it will be my way or nothing else. Jeremy Irons' character dies. I think it's cancer he dies of, isn't it? Because he looks progressively more and more unwell as the film goes on.
Yeah.
And he plays his character at one stage, I think, been an actor.
Yes, that's right. He had been an actor years before. And right enough, Pablo Gucci, he compliments him on his cheekbones. And I thought, oh, that's man's dying of cancer. That's why he's so thin.
Yeah, because he progressively gets thinner and thinner. I mean, he's thin to begin with, he gets thinner and thinner. But, I mean, his son, you got to refresh my memory. Jared Leto's character was Al Pacino's son, is that right?
He was indeed, yes. He was the thought of as the idiot son, the one without the talent. I felt kind of sorry for him. Now, apparently he wasn't that bonkers in real life. He was eccentric, but Jared Leto had certainly portrayed him as well over the top. The only thing about it was that I enjoyed his scenes more because I thought he was interesting to watch. No, finally there was a character that was worth watching. And to be honest, for me, I'm not Italian, can't speak it. He sounded more realistically Italian, I think, than the other ones, particularly Jeremy Irons.
I mean, the sad thing when you're looking at Leto's character in this is that he wants to be or to feel as important as the other family members, and he's not feeling that. And the scene that I felt incredibly sorry for him is where he's showing Jeremy Irons' character. He's saying, "Look at our producer." He's going, and Jeremy Irons' character is going, "Oh yes, you've got something. You know, has anyone else sort of seen this stuff?" And he's basically telling, you get the impression he's going to be saying, "Right, this is great. We can produce something. It'll rival any other works that the family are doing." And he basically just says to me, "Stuff's crap. The colours are all wrong." And he doesn't like brown. For him. Yeah.
For some reason, Jeremy Irons doesn't like browns and pastels.
I mean, what I will say when you think about this film is, for the cast, they must have lungs of iron in this film, because the sheer number of people, which ages it, the sheer number of people smoking in this film is unbelievable. But you see this interesting thing where, again, really, and it becomes more apparent as the film goes on. Lady Gaga, the lady she plays, is really the real Black Widow, isn't she? Because she sinks her claws in. She wants to get a level of control, and she's saying to Adam Driver's character, you know, the stuff they're doing, it's crap, it's nonsense. The family is too much in the past. We've got to take the reins of this and make something happen. And at one stage, and this to me is someone who works, although I'm low down the pecking order in finance, I found this idea very interesting when it turns out that once Joanne's character has died, they're saying, right, well, we will look at the shares that are held. And it turns out that he's not actually signed the shares. So there's no ownership of them, no ownership of the company. So it would then turn out that basically they would have to buy everything out, which is like financially impossible for them. So the real knife, you know, the sharpening of the knives begins when, if my memory serves me right, Lady Gaga basically says, well, we're going to have to go to Al Pacino, to the guy who's running the show, to get ourselves drawn into his world, because we can have more impact. We can bring them forward.
Yeah, I think as well too that she was probably able to sort of hook Kylo Ren a wee bit more because she became pregnant.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Suddenly,
yes.
Yeah, the motivation is don't just do it for me, do it for the future of our daughter. Or sorry, do it for the future of our unborn child, which turns out to be the daughter. But I think, well, this is how she's portrayed in the film. As to whether she was actually like that or not, because I have seen criticisms leveled against the film that it was still, you know, that it's been set up, the Skyven woman, it's all her fault. You know, just targeting her in particular. Maybe it was, hard to know. We weren't there. But, and she did, after all, have her husband killed, so maybe it's completely right.
Yeah.
But
if
her
you've
motivations are extremely clear.
If you've not seen this film, Salty Tadpoles, we're going to spoil the bejesus out of it and tough, and you could find out if you did a Google search anyway. We are doing a wonderful review of it. I think it became more interesting for me, and probably where I started to fancy her even more, is that when we shifted to the 80s, I like the 80s, so I also like the 80s look. I think the cast started to look a little better stylized when they hit the 80s, because some of the 70s stuff just, I thought, looked god awful. It also scares me thinking back to this film how much some of the 80s fashion is actually coming back. The bad 80s fashion.
Yes. Well, funny, and of course they bring in the 80s music. I think New Order, Blue Monday is somewhere in it. The only thing, the way they kind of just threw the music at the film. If it wasn't opera, I mean, there was an awful lot of stereotypical stuff here. How Europeans, how the rest of the world, possibly a few Italians, they're gangsters, they listen to opera, and in the 80s, randomly, music just appears from nowhere. There's one scene, and I thought, where's that music coming from? I think it might have been the Eurythmics, or it was New Order, I can't remember, but I thought, is something coming in from somewhere else? Am I hearing music from somewhere? Because it just seemed to completely dominate the scene. But it was kind of, I at times wasn't sure what decade I was in initially at the start, because it almost felt more 60s than late 70s to start off with, just the way it was shot and the colours, and it reminded me of some of the older Italian movies, which I thought was quite a nice homage to start off with. But then I didn't realise it was actually set in the very late 70s. Before then you go into the 80s, and it sort of establishes itself possibly a bit more in terms of how it looks, and you see the fashions coming in, because the 80s, it's a big thing in films, it's a big thing in movie. You know, it was once the 70s because of the flares and things, and now the 80s seems to be let's look at the 80s. But then in some ways the 80s much more exciting fashion as well to look at than what we have now, where everybody kind of want to look the same.
It was an interesting thing also that I was thinking back to this film when you saw the difference between the way the actual Gucci family lived. Because if you looked when there was, because obviously what happened is, you know, Gaga's character basically said, right, we're going to, you know, the company's failing. She gets her husband in there. She basically, they find out that what's the one thing you'll always be pulled up on? The most inevitable things in life, death and taxes. And they find out that basically the character played by Al Pacino, which is I pulled his name up because I will say this, Aldo Gucci, running it. He's not paying his taxes. They dob him in, so they dob their own family in to the police to get him on that. He's pulled in while playing a squash match.
So slightly shocked by that moment.
Yeah, I mean, because what happens is that basically he's Leto's character. I don't know. Now, I would like your take on this, John. Is Leto's character doing this out of spite, or is he doing this because he's maybe not the sharpest knife in the knife drawer? That he mentions it. Is he doing it to get him, do you think? Or
I think what he really wants is he's been fooled by our two main characters. He's definitely, they've pulled the wool over his eyes, particularly what's her name? Gaga. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce her names because I forget them as I go. Patricia. I think he's been fooled particularly by her because she's in the movie. She's quite cunning. She's definitely sociopathic narcissist, and she's fooled him. And
my kind of woman.
Well.
My kind of woman.
Yeah, exactly. Without the safe word. And so she's also fooled him. Because she's saying to him, because don't forget, she goes to visit him and says, "Oh, your designs are amazing. They should be out there." And so she plays to his ego that way. And also for the fact that here's a man that just wants to be loved. He wants to be, as you said, he's not seen on par with the rest of the family. And this is his way, because he doesn't honestly think his father's going to go to prison.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't at all. It's just such a shock for him. And the guilt eats him up so much as well that when the dad goes away to prison for a year or so, and they've basically told him, if you do that, don't worry about it, Daddy will be all right, but you'll now be able to produce your designs. We'll support you in that. And of course, that's not how it goes.
And it's really sad. That you are right. That's really, really sad because they're getting to produce things, and I still remember there's the point where he's running like a fashion show, and it's his wife, isn't it, who's singing.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I love that bit of music. I can't remember what it's called, but I can hear it playing in my head at the moment because just the range that the singer has to have is phenomenal.
And they're running the show, and then basically they swoop in, don't they, to serve notice on him, saying you've copyright, you've gone against the copyright of Gucci, which is obviously run by Adam Driver's. It's the scheming of. I mean, let's be honest. Mauricio, which is Adam Driver's character, and Patricia are both conniving. They're not nice people. I get the impression that maybe Mauricio was nice at one point, and again, you could level, I guess, what you've said, that it's kind of like an obvious piece of the trope they usually see, which is the evil nasty woman has twisted him. But I don't know, I get the impression they could be as bad as each other. But it's this moment where you do feel, I feel very sorry for, you see this big difference, Patricia and Mauricio, very obviously they are living wealthily. They have a nice Bentley. And Paolo, the character played by Jared Leto, turns up in it's still a nice car, but an older, 944 Porsche.
Yeah, I thought, Porsche.
Yep. What, you thought of me, or?
No, I thought, it's good. I thought, sorry, we have an expression over here when we get excited to see something. I thought, great, I love Porsches. But the 944, still a very nice Porsche. I mean, not just quite 911 quality, but still pretty damn good. But yes, here's the thing: his fashion show, I actually thought his fashion looked okay.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, I did, and I liked the way. I thought it was actually really well done. The other thing about it was, at that point, I really finally appreciated seeing some fashion. That is the one major feeling in the film for me, and that Halston really nailed. You've seen the fashion that he was working all the way through. Now, admittedly, with Halston, you had the luxury of it being a TV series, so that you could go into that. We were able to watch his advertisements, and ridiculous as they were, but they were still just wonderful. And but there was very little fashion in it. You had all this preamble before you got to the real part of the main story, and I think that was a waste. I think they should have brought in the fashion side of things. I wanted to know what they were fighting for.
Yeah.
Because the fashion was definitely very important. The name of Gucci and the products that it was making, and because at one point in Chinatown in New York, they're selling. I've actually been round there. I was round there years ago and bought an illegal handbag. I can't remember who it was by. Still have it somewhere. And into those areas that they have the fake goods, and she's really raging about that. So the fashion and how it looked and the quality was significant to the family, but yet it plays such a small role in the film. I do think that they missed out there. I really do think they missed out. We've seen Adam Driver is wearing the belt, and we see the Gucci loafers at some point, and we see some of their soft luggage goods and their handbags, but we don't get real feel for what the Gucci look is. And a scarf that Jared Leto has pee on.
I think part of the problem is that when you talk about the fashion, it's almost slightly, you are right, it's almost slightly secondary in this, because like the family's all over the show, and I guess you gave me a flashback mentally, which is the fact that Patricia is basically she goes to Aldo, doesn't she, and says, my housekeeper's bought knockoff stuff, and he's going, oh well, it doesn't matter, look, people can't afford our product, they can get it, it's all right, our stuff is our stuff, this is the way it'll be. And she gets insulted because he says, like, no woman will make a decision about this. But I guess what happens with Patricia also is she says, right, legally, she works out she can go after people, which is, again, how she starts crushing other people. But also her motivation, this is where, Salma Hayek's character comes in, who is Pina Orima, I think is how you pronounce it, Orama is how you pronounce her surname.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
So it's Pina Oriyama, who is like, she's one of these weird, what I understand was kind of big in the 70s and certainly in the 80s, of having somebody on TV who can like tell the future. Now, the question is she as complicit in everything that happens in this? Is she more the driving force in some respects? Because she kind of pushes Patricia to be doing all kind of manner of crazy things, saying, you will be this great, important, wonderful person. It will all be about you.
Then, I mean, fortune tellers are just despicable in my books. Anyway, they take advantage either of the mentally ill, the grieving, or people that are just looking for something. Now, they're great at cold reading. People have a tendency whenever they go into these situations with fortune tellers, no matter how they're doing it, whether it's tarot cards or tea leaves, whatever the hell it is, that they can read the people very well. Now, you can get some people who believe their own shit, but they're just extremely good at cold reading the people that are sitting in front of them. But apparently they didn't. That's not how they actually met. That it was quite common to have a fortune teller at that time. It's quite common amongst the Italians, particularly in the 80s. Apparently, the hubby, he had one, and she met that woman at a ski resort on holiday, and it was just something that she did on the side. It wasn't her main thing, but in the film, you get the impression that they meet on one of those weird sort of almost live advertisements that they used to have, where people could phone in and say, here's my money, take my money and lie to me. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it's almost like she gets dragged into Patrizio's world. This is a woman who likes having a very famous friend. Is telling her what she needs to hear, but actually really likes her in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of
becomes her friend.
I do find myself having sympathy for Patricia in parts of this, because she's not okay. She is not a nice person. As the film goes on, when we find out what she has done and what she did in real life, and where it left her, she's clearly not a good person. But I think the problem is, no one in this film is in a particularly good state. No, and I've said this previously. I spoke to somebody about this. I spoke to Jim, actually. I said, nobody comes out of this film well. Everyone's a mess in this film. There is no positive solution for anyone. It's also interesting, though, when you just going back to the fact you said they met at a ski resort, we see a ski resort coming into this film later on. So what I find interesting is why we didn't see the meeting at the ski resort, where I had the TV thing, but maybe just made for a better story to tell. Who knows? But they always say that, if you're going to be done, financially, you've got to be very careful what you do. You've always got to pay your taxes because it will come back and bite you on the bum. And in a sense, is it taxes that they got to, that, basically, the revenge from Paolo happened because am I right in thinking that he sets tax issues or some sort of financial thing against Patricia Maurizio?
Well, I think what's happened is the inference is that whenever the Jeremy Irons boy died, that he didn't sign the shares. You remember we were talking about shares earlier?
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
And I think the sort of the hint is that she had actually forged his signature, or Kylo Ren had forged his signature, one of the two. And then the financial investigators come after him. So kind of it's what happens to his uncle, but his assistant tips him off, and he's able to meet one of his house staff outside. He brings his VFR 800, and off he goes to ride 3 hours to Switzerland, I think it is. And I'd actually talked about this on the TV show.
You did. I've seen. I wanted you to please tell me again, because
highly insulted I was. There he is. He comes out. He's on the run. He comes out. He's wearing his Gucci loafers and his big coat, and he puts his lid on and his gloves. And Gucci loafers, now bear in mind, all you have is socks. Now, I've ridden in the snow. I know how fucking cold it is to ride in the snow. He rides 3 hours across to another country because the other country doesn't have an extraction, with Italy. There's a name for that.
An expedition order.
Is it expedition order or extradition? Extradition. Yes.
This is the thing. Neither of us can form sentences. Now, normally,
an expedition order. So they don't have an extradition.
I just want to say that normally Gemma's the one who mangles something, but Gemma, for you, I've done it without realising I've done it. So
it's either Switzerland or Austria. I think it's Switzerland.
I think it is Switzerland. Yeah.
I think it is. He rides 3 hours to Switzerland in his shoes.
Yeah,
in his fucking shoes, and he gets off, because I couldn't curse on the TV show because they're lemon.
No.
But he gets off the bike there, and he just gets off the bike and hands the bike to somebody else to put away in the garage. And I'm thinking, you'd be fucking freezing. It's not that he's got. You can get stuff now under your leathers or under your winter corduroys and stuff, because the gear's come a long way in 30 years. That actually is heated, and even then,
wow,
the coat. It still is going to get through to your boots, your motorcycle boots, which are particularly set up, and that you can buy waterproof ones for really bad weather. And he gets off like, yeah, I've just ridden 5 minutes down the road, and it's piss riding for 3 hours in the snow, and I'm not cold at all. He wouldn't be. He'd have got there. I know what it's like. He'd have got there, and he wouldn't have been able to get off the bike. He'd have been sitting freezing, shaking away for a minute or two before he finally was able to swing his leg off the bike. Actually, I did notice that there was no symbol on the bike, so they must have had a sponsorship deal from Honda.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember watching the film and I thought, my actual thought on the bike scenes, I still remember this, I thought, my God, he's got some balls going out on a bike in that sort of weather. And I'm thinking that could be I kept thinking he could lose control, fall off. But I do remember watching it. I honestly thought you could have thought, I wonder what John's going to make of this.
No. It's a bit scary. I've been lucky enough that I haven't ridden ice. It happened to me in Scotland in May, believe it or not. Any Scottish listeners will go, yeah, it's pretty typical. Up on the mountains a bit more, and up above Fort Augustus. I think it's the Seven Sisters or whatever it is called up round there. And we were riding down to Fort Augustus from, I think it was Inverness. We were riding down, and it was cold. And that weekend, I think the highest it got to was 6 degrees. And it was like -15 at night. I had to go to Primark to buy extra layers and all. And I was still freezing, but I could not have ridden 3 hours to Switzerland in deep snow and ice in a pair of Gucci loafers. Maybe the special protective properties that I didn't appreciate, and I need to tell my biking friends that we've gone about this the wrong way, that we actually should just be wearing designer labels, and that will actually be extremely good. And
funny, I mean, the thing that I wanted your take on the bike. What I also found strange is because obviously what happens is he leaves to go and be to not be arrested. Basically, Maurizio goes out to be arrested, and he meets up with a lot of friends who you kind of think there'd be a bit more of a. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like this film. I know you did not, but I did find it strange that you never really sort of learn about the people he's friends with who were there, apart from, I think, Pola, who is, I think, probably a former Flame. Because his head is turned by her, clearly, and he's away from his family in a very nice chalet sort of thing. The thing that got me that I find interesting, but also made me chuckle, is you were concerned on the biking thing. I'm thinking, how the hell is a Bentley, which I think is a Type R, which is a rear-wheel drive car, going around in the snow without any problem? Now, they may have stuck snow tyres on it. I know Bentleys weigh a lot. They are very heavy vehicles. But I found that very strange that they were driving around with so much ease in a Bentley without hitting things. But maybe it's a weight and winter tyres and just a good driver. Who knows? Just
to go off to the side about winter tyres, I was flying over to Destination Star Trek last month to London City.
You did.
Yeah, I sat beside a guy who it turned out that he did work for the Met Office. He sort of audits their various stations, and we have a couple over here, meteorology places, and he was over here. But he was telling me that he lived in Germany, and in Germany you are legally obliged to have winter tires. And the winter tires are smaller, so the thinner radius, so there's less to go sliding sideways. And he said that the difference was unbelievable. You could genuinely drive in the snow, and he still can't get over it. And you have to have them. You store them over the summer, and then you're legally obliged to put them on in the winter. And if you cause an accident, your insurance doesn't cover you if you don't have the correct tires on. So it might be. He certainly sold it to me anyway. By the time I got off the aircraft, I thought winter tires are a really good idea. He says it was incredible the conditions he was able to drive in. So maybe same thing. But yeah, there was definitely taking liberties with vehicles in this film.
To be fair, that would make a lot of sense that they are treating it properly in the way they're driving. Don't worry, we're coming out of car corner in a minute, salty tadpoles. But I looked into getting winter tyres for my Audi, but the problem is that my alloys are that big that I can't. They don't actually make them for it.
Because they need to not have the same width as the tyres to make them effective.
So my drug dealing alloy wheel setup means that I cannot rolling into a tree, more likely into a field. But the way I deal with this when there's bad snow is I just don't take the car out. But who knows? In the future, because we are going to discuss cars just for a second, I love the fact that Joanne is very similar to me in the fact she loves Porsche, because I would love to get a Porsche at some point. I also would like an old Bentley. So if I ever am lucky enough to get either of these vehicles in my life, I will maybe be able to see what the driving experience in snow is like. Or probably more than likely I'll just crap myself on the idea of going out and damaging the vehicles and go nowhere in them.
I have to say, don't go for a Boxster. Absolutely.
Yeah, we discussed that. I bet
yes.
Come on. Salty tadpoles, hang on in there, because this is an important thing. Because we are doing you a service. If you want to buy a vehicle like either of these, Joanne and I are tested. So you weren't impressed by the Boxster?
Wasn't impressed. No, we went to go and see a Boxster. I always wanted a Porsche, I suppose I should say. Thought, well, Boxster gets a great write up. Some of the YouTube videos were very good. Got into it, could see fuck all behind. Because there's no visibility in it at all. You're sitting down low, fair enough, but there's no visibility. So we were in it, and because we were test driving one, the other half, and he says, "What's out the side?" I went, "I don't know, because I can't see anything." And I'm actually completely unnerved. And then we got lost trying to leave the car back as well, and the guy thought we'd stolen it, but that's a whole other story.
It
wouldn't be so bad, but we both forgot our phone. I left my phone in the car, and he left his phone in the car as well.
Well, I'd like to have when we come off the recording, I'd like to, if it's at all possible, to hear the full story behind that one, because
that's actually pretty much it. Actually, to be honest, we got lost on the way back to this place.
Oh well,
that's it. And he panicked.
Well, I'm going to use the Joanne litmus test for if I do ever get a Porsche, as the midlife crisis for me is fast approaching, so it might happen. So.
Get a motorbike. They're more fun.
No, I'll be dead. I might as well just throw myself in front of fast-moving heavy goods vehicles rather than buy a motorbike. It would be the cheaper and quicker option to create my demise. But we've digressed. So to stop the extradition order, as I can now speak the correct language, Joanne has reminded me, and Gemma will be laughing listening to that portion. The head has been turned by somebody else for Adam Driver's character. And interesting, so it's actually Paola Franchi, I believe the pronunciation, has turned the head of our erstwhile leading man. And interestingly, Patricia has worked out there is an issue here. She's tried to join Mauricio to get happy families, but you can see what's happening because I love this scene. I loved it in the trailer where she basically sort of saying, "Do you know about ownership?"
Yes.
do you know sort of like basically, do you know about stealing from somebody? I've taught my child all about this, and Paola gets the threat, doesn't she? But it's that.
No, she doesn't have.
It's the coffee thing. It's where she's there with her espresso, one of my favourite coffees, and she's going, I'm not like a violent person, but I don't, I don't subscribe to conventional punishment.
Well, I think she's probably thought, my husband and this woman, they have unusual noses. Therefore, they'll probably want to have an affair. I think whenever they met on the piste, I think their noses met across a crowded room, and that was it. They were destined to be together. Interesting enough, I thought there was more believable chemistry between those two characters. I can't remember his name. What's his fucking Spanish? Oh my goodness, Italian name.
Mauricio.
Mauricio. I thought there was more chemistry between Mauricio and the blonde one than there was between Mauricio and Patricia. I'm just going to start talking, naming spaghettis for flip's sake here at this rate of going, just to be absolutely insulting because I can't get anybody's name right.
The thing I found interesting on Paola, the actress playing the part, this could be me. This is not. If anyone takes offence to this, it's not meant to be offensive. It's just an observation from a confused, not completely healthy man like myself. Did she make you think of Princess Diana a little bit, or is that just me?
No, but I could see maybe where you're coming from because she had the sort of this slightly coy out through the eyelashes bit.
But I was thinking visually, I could see a bit, the way she looked facially. But maybe it's just me.
Maybe across the eyes, not the nose. Definitely not the nose.
Must be the eyes then. But
I think it might be the eyes.
Moving on. So shit got real, as they say. So Patricia's basically been sort of like pushed out the door, and Mauricio has he's got his bit on the side, and he is trying to find. Now, I found this interesting. He's trying to find people to invest more. Gucci and the shoes become apparent, as one would always suspect, because Gucci are known for their shoes and their handbags, and he's basically saying to one of the investors from an outside company, which does get interesting on the reality of this film. He's saying basically, this is the sort of wonderful products we've got. So they're all living the high life, everything's great, and we cut to the unfortunate, sad reality of seeing a freshly or reasonably freshly released Aldo from prison, where he meets Paolo in an airport. It's pretty, to me, it's quite a sad situation. It's quite a, well, it's not, it's your heart does not swell, your heart hits your shoes, because to me, they're both in a mess. They can't find the car in the car park, and it's just, they've gone from the lofty heights to basic failure, living in some weird house. But what I think getting that scene is this strange obsession that Leto's character has about discussing the fact that he can't go to the loo.
I've forgotten about that.
And I don't understand what that was about at all. It made no sense to me.
No, that's probably why I forgot all about it. Very vague memories of that bit, because the whole scene was uncomfortable to watch. I find it really a bit, I'm not really enjoying this, because how the mighty have fallen.
Exactly.
And because I still felt sorry for Pablo, the dad, was just a bit of a bastard, and I thought it was just that extremely feeling of intense sadness whenever you seen that particular, those images and how the son still really wanted to make it up to the dad, and how the guilt was killing him, and the dad was literally just hanging on by his fingernails, probably to his own insanity after having spent all that time in prison. So no, it was uncomfortable viewing.
It was, and it was also this thing where, and I've gathered it isn't too realistic with Leto's characterization on the weird clothing, but everyone being of Gucci has a style to them. But he wears like he wears some very strange coloured suits at the start, and he's wearing like shell suits, which I guess is just a way of showing the mess he's in. Because I think it's his wife left him, and everything's just gone horribly wrong. And then they get brought into a meeting with the other kind of like shareholders of the Gucci company, who basically force his hand to buy them out. But it also looks quite interesting around, again, the shoes, because it's obviously a very unique pair of shoes that are handed over to them that have real lineage. And my memory serves me, Pacino's character is trying to give them shoes as well, and they're sort of saying, well, it's of no consequence, we've already got things off driver's character. And that is a sad scene, because basically they've just been forced into giving away their ownership of the company, haven't they? Which again ties into the comment I made about nobody comes out this well.
No, I mean, although he's trying to explain that those shoes practically bankrupt him when he was making them, because he was putting real gold into them. And because he recognized the shoes that the investor was wearing, because they had been a gift from again, I've forgotten his name. I'm just going to call him Kylo Ren. They had been a gift from Kylo Ren, and he was proudly, oh, look at me, we love Gucci so much, I've got a pair of these shoes. And although he recognized them, oh yes, I remember those. Or if you lift the insole, it's got real gold in it, and it was very expensive to make. And it was a real love. And then he realizes that Kylo Ren is actually the one in the background negotiating this deal with these new investors, and companies effectively taken. I mean, he's a broken man. By the time he signs that, he's just broke, both financially and just physically and mentally. That's it. He can't do it anymore. He knows he's lost, and the fight has just gone from him.
It's almost like when he finally agrees to sign the papers, he's almost like saying, well, good luck with it, but F you. This is a family. You've destroyed this family. And what's a really interesting point? So actually, going back to your comment about how unfairly the characterization may be when we're looking at Patricia, she's seen as the Black Widow, the nasty piece of work, the one who creates the monster with Mauricio. But if you look at Mauricio, he turns into this point, and maybe it is her influence, but I'm trying to look at him as well. He goes, if you think of the start, he's like, I'm not interested in the fame, I'm not interested in the wonderful clothing, the money. I love Patricia, I will work at cleaning wagons at her family business. And at this point in the film, there's this turn, because he's become obsessed by money, he's obsessed by his image, he is basically driven by it, almost like he doesn't give a toss about the company. All he wants to do is keep creating as much funding for himself. You see him in, I think it's a Lamborghini, and it's even highlighted on later. Beautiful. It's even highlighted later on in the film that, like, what the hell are you doing? Your lifestyle's bonkers. This is screwing the company over. But what we see going from there, and I do remember this scene sticking in my head, is when Patricia goes to try and get him to come back to her, and she's saying, the children miss you, I miss you. She even shows him pictures saying, look at these things, look at what we've got here. And he's just horrendous to her. Yeah. Truly horrendous. Now, the question I would be interested, Joanne, because I'm talking too much, and I want to ask you this, because you are my as I commented, my podcast bit on the side, which is a word you use which cracks me up. We're a family podcast. I have a wife and a mistress, so don't ever think anything.
No kids. No kids. Well, I'm not the father anyway. Just
It's all good, clean fun. So it's family, wife, mistress. And I'm not
Father, son, house of Gucci.
yeah. I'm not that I loved that, and I've gathered that was it. Yeah, the father, son, house of Gucci was actually brilliant. Something which was supposedly Gaga did it as like spur of the moment thing. It wasn't scripted. But going back to the scene, I feel incredibly sorry for her because she is broken, and I think she legitimately does love him and want him back. And he just is like, you're making a fool of yourself. You're doing this, you're just making a fool of yourself. I don't love you. I'm not interested. And that's a tough watch. I feel that's quite a tough watch because I do really feel for her at that point.
Yeah, it's another uncomfortable scene. And this is the unfortunate bit about the movie. If they had stopped dicking about for a good hour and a half and tightened the script away down and concentrated on the really juicy stuff, and they still could have brought in the history of the family. They could have just done it so much better. I mean, we had a scene with a big bull at one point. And I thought, this is just, Patricia is trying to establish a relationship with Aldo. But it's just, there's too much cleverness for its own good, I think, that made it suffer. That by now, this should have been, you really should have been building up the tension by now.
Yes.
That instead, it was just moments of intense sadness, uncomfortable scenes, and no fashion.
Yeah, and you see around this point. I mean, I was going to say the juicy scene for me was the scene in the beauty spa, the mud baths, but that's just me and my filthy, perverse mind. But you for those who haven't seen, don't have a clue what the hell we're discussing about, it's when basically you've got Lady Gaga and Salma Hayek in a mud bath. Yeah, it did a lot for me, that, for various reasons, but I digress. It's kind of like at that point where you really do see that, Patricia's gone full on batshit crazy. I feel that she
mental by now.
She's thrown all sort of like, I'm going to try and get him back. I am the scorned woman now. I am going to get them. Because I can't remember, she might have been like around the time she was served divorce papers, or she certainly could see the writing on the wall, and she decides to take the situation from what probably most normal people would want to try and resolve it with, getting the person back, and I guess if you had to, legal means to take it to a whole new level, which is, spoiler alert, let's hire some hitmen. Sorry, let's be more precise. Let's hire some really bloody inept hitmen. But what I also thought, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this from a fashion perspective, darling. What did you make of the way they were dressed when they were hiring them?
Yeah, it was like a couple of millies from East Belfast somewhere, which will not make many sense to anybody probably listen. The majority of people listen to this. They were just a couple of.
Just let me back you, John. I'm hosting with him. It makes no sense to me. What the hell is a millie?
A millie is. I know it's a local expression here. A millie is. It's a hard woman. Who's not terribly well dressed and possibly somewhat impoverished. Of the lower classes, darling. So she's a millie, and they'd be quite rough by very rough by nature, and dressed quite weirdly. Well, no, not quite weirdly. I'm trying to how do you explain what a millie is? Yes, yeah, a millie is somebody who is from the working class and maybe doesn't have the best of fashion, but would have fashion that would maybe try and reflect the really good stuff. But they're hard as nails and they do your knees.
Because the thing is, I was trying to work out, because I remember watching this thinking, good God, they suddenly look rough. And I was trying to work out, are they meant to be like life has hammered them down a bit and things are getting really bad? Or were they just trying to disguise themselves?
No idea. It was such a weird, these scenes, and I mean, you wanted to crack one off over the mud bath scene, and I just sat and watched what the fuck is going on here? Why? Because they're just, I couldn't understand how she was able to talk her friend into, or somebody talked somebody into, yes, let's hire some hitmen, and then let's go and find these really quite surreal guys. And I thought by this time she must be completely out of her tree. She must have money somewhere that she could afford professionals.
They were basically they both of them sort of just said to them basically like, here's the money. If memory serves me, it's like they were trying to haggle on the price, and she's going, no, basically, this is the price. This is what we'll pay you. But I think they made them increase it to make it like quick, to try and make it a certain way. They're like, basically, don't mess it up. Just do it.
They wanted more money so that they could have time to watch him, to establish his routine probably, and to work out a better way to get away with it.
Yeah, because they were, they almost wanted to add a level of professionalism to it, I guess, to do it. And they're just going, no, we just want it done. But in the actual Gucci situation, things as a business has changed dramatically. So they bring Tom Ford in, who actually manages to shake them up and make them more relevant as a business, because they're seen as being quite old-fashioned. And they're at a fashion show, Adam Driver and other people, and he has like some sort of, I assume he's just had like a vision of something that isn't happening, where he thinks he sees Patricia there, but she's obviously not. And then it goes back to watching the fashion show. But I will take my hat off. I know that Tom Ford has been less than complimentary about the way he's portraying this, but I think Reeve Carney, who I actually know initially from the brilliant Penny Dreadful series, was actually really good in this. I liked his take on Tom Ford, and I could believe he was meant to be Tom Ford.
I thought he did a good job. No, I think actually that takeover company had already bought Maurizio out, though, he wasn't there when Tom Ford.
That's correct. Yeah,
because it's all. It looks like that they shafted him after he had organised for Tom Ford to come in, and Tom saves the company, but it's actually that happens after the buyout. But yeah, I thought the portrayal of Tom Ford was very positive, which I'm probably glad for him, because he's still alive, and I'm sure he probably went in thinking, oh my good grief, how are they going to portray me in this?
Well, I mean, what could have been very interesting is Tom Ford does make films, as well as the face fashion lines, and it would have been very interesting to actually see how this film would have gone if a director who was involved in fashion had made it. That, I think, could have been quite interesting. I mean,
I'd love to have seen that.
The film then makes an interesting jump, because and this is not, well, I'll discuss this shortly, and I'd like to hear what your take on it as well. But so the hitmen have been hired, and the film doesn't follow and I was reminded of this when I spoke to Jim, that the film doesn't really that parts of it are linear to a degree, but the way the film opens is we're seeing a day in the life of Adam Driver's character, and we see him more towards what would be the end of the film. So we see Mauricio, he's on his bike, he's cycling, he seems reasonably happy, and he gets to his destination of work, or wherever it may, I think it might be his hotel actually, or the flat he lives in, or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's his home. Yep.
Yeah, his apartment, and he gets shot by one of the assassins, as does unfortunately the poor doorman, who's done nothing. He tries to go out and resolve it with a baseball bat, and he gets gunned down, unfortunately, as well. And then it cuts to, we're seeing the response from Patricia, who is obviously very upset. She obviously, the idea is that she's aware of what has happened, that the plan she put in place has gone into motion, and she is then seen going to what would have been, I guess, her family home, because she's still married to him at this point. Actually, they've not divorced, and she goes to the new woman is shown to hug her and emotionally try and be at one with her on the awfulness of the situation. Then it changes dramatically, doesn't it, Joanne?
It was actually that scene was very good, because I thought, oh my goodness, she's showing empathy. This is the first time we've really seen this character display empathy, and I almost thought it was her way of her passing on her guilt. I feel guilty here at the moment. I'm sharing empathy with you. Okay, I've done that empathetic bit, therefore I've got rid of my guilt. There we go. Out the fuck. You don't live here anymore. Yeah. This is my home.
She throws her out.
Yeah, that was almost like, I had guilt for doing it. Well, my guilt's okay now. My hands are clean.
and you see her settling into the what will be her home. But the strangest thing is just the sudden, and this is you see the outcome of what happens. That she's that. I mean, as I said, the film takes a shift. You see, pretty much everybody has died out of the family. Gucci, as a company, went under different leadership, became a public listed company, and became very big from what I can remember. The film has gone from she's in the house, she's now the queen of all she surveys, and then it suddenly jumps to a court scene and tells us what's happening there. And she does ask the thing that I think you're trying to see how tough she is she says, I wish to be known as Mrs. Gucci, to be addressed as Mrs. Gucci, and it shows that how the sentence is. And then to show the future, the sad situation where just about everybody's died, is taken over shots of the actors. They mentioned that the house of Gucci, or the company Gucci, went public. It's played over just scenes with writing over it, and it seems like a very rushed end to me.
It does, doesn't it? It's very. I mean, dear good grief, the amount of shit they could have cut out to make a proper end. This film really needs to be recut.
Yes.
I think there's potentially a good movie in there.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that I would have found it more comfortable to watch as a TV series, that I would have been willing to spend that time. But really, by the time I got to the end of it, I thought, this is never going to finish. I am here forever. I'm in a parallel dimension where I'm possibly in purgatory. It turns out hell does exist after all. And unfortunately, it's not my man Satan running it. It's the House of Gucci. And I'm going to have to watch this now.
Or Ridley Scott's running it.
Oh God! And it went on and on. But yeah, director's cut. Usually a director's cut is something you think is great. You're going to get 20 minutes somewhere. Or our favourite Justice League, we got an extra 4 hours or whatever the hell it was. It was brilliant. And that's worthwhile waiting for. But this, holy fuck, you need a reverse director's cut with this.
I'll tell you what's interesting is that I believe there is another cut coming along. I think there is a director's cut in the offing. What I have always felt with this film, and I'm very intrigued to see how you feel on this, is the fact that it felt. I liked it, and I could watch it and I enjoyed it, but whenever I do a review, I like to try and look at the positives and the negatives of a film, and I'm hoping I've done that past with you as well.
Oh, yes.
It felt like a TV movie to me.
That's a very good point. Yes, it was like an expensive TV movie, and there's already a fantastic cut out there of it, and that's the trailer.
Yeah.
The trailer's brilliant.
Yeah. What it did not feel like, what it did not feel like to me, because to be fair, I got the Halston. I think I may have mentioned this when I discussed it on Banterflakes, but the vibe I got is this: the way you and I both kind of approach this. And if I'm speaking on your behalf wrong, please tell me. Which is, we saw a trailer, Halston and this, and there was a similar thing. It was very much, you got an 80s or certainly 70s to 80s vibe, which was evident with them both, and you got an excellent piece of music that grabbed your attention in the trailer, made you think, wow, this is going to be something big. The problem you had, it's going to be on a smaller scale with Halston, because it's a mini-series, but when you looked at this film, you looked at the way it was pushed on the trailer, with pretty much all Academy Award winners or nominated people in the cast, it feels like it should have been a much bigger magnitude piece than it was. And I liked it, but I felt it could have worked as a TV piece, or would have worked better as a TV miniseries.
Yep, it was too self-indulgent. It really was too self-indulgent. There should have been somebody in there hacking and slashing their way through that storyline. So much of that could have been cut out. It wasn't relevant. It blew. I mean, that must have been the scandal of the 80s, or whenever it was that. That 90s. He was shot. 90s.
I think he was shot around the 90s. I mean, I could be wrong, but
it must have been a huge major scandal, and it just felt wasted. The film felt wasted. What would have been? I'm wondering actually what the book's like, because my goodness, if the book and the film are exactly the same, I'm really hoping the book is much better written. because that's a genuinely fascinating story, that a family rips itself apart so much. One gets done for IRS, one goes on. Be very careful when you say the word IR over here. Did I get it right?
Yes, I was thinking that. I was just thinking that.
Did say IRS, did it? Yeah. So one gets nobbled by the IRS. There's financial implications for the son. There's the buyout. It was the 80s. It was the 90s. There's all this sexy stuff. There's scandal. There's affairs, and it just felt dull.
I mean, I obviously like this film a lot more than you. I really did enjoy it, but the faults I see is that with so much build-up, what the hell was the end? You've come to this amazing important thing where he has been murdered. People have all had, I mean, because it was. I just remember sitting watching the end of it, thinking, so that's how you're going to finalise it. That's how you're going to finish this. And I felt sad. I'm going to be honest. I felt sad at the end of it because I just thought, no one's come out this well. Not a single person has come out this well. There's been no success other than, say, the Gucci company. There has been no success for a single person. You've had death upon death upon death. Someone's in prison. It's not a nice film to watch. It's quite a tragic film to watch. But the interesting thing I learned is this. Strangely, when a film is made, invariably, the actors in it, are generally a lot better looking than the people they playing. The reality, I'm afraid to say, for this film is it's the other way around.
Really?
If you look at them, the men were generally handsome, the women were beautiful. Now, I'm not knocking Lady Gaga. I think she's attractive, and she looked pretty close to the character.
Yeah, the same photograph. Yeah, I thought she probably looked about the closest.
And they're pretty, but the other people, no offence to Mr. Driver, the chappie you portrayed was far more handsome than you are, and it was, again, yeah, if you just have a look, and I'd say this for anybody else, have a look for who the real people are. Certainly for Leto, but I think the thing with Leto's character is they wanted to make him, Leto is a handsome guy, so I think what they wanted to do was make him look as different from how he normally looks to stand out, and I think that definitely gave the man he plays, certainly on appearance, and I've gathered personality, a real disservice.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine, going back to reshooting or recutting this film again, could you imagine if it had have been him on the run, meeting Maurizio, meeting the girl, then there's acrimonious shenanigans between Patrizia and Maurizio, and they start there, and then she has him killed. That's her reason. She has him killed. So that's really in the forefront of your mind. It's because she's a scorned woman, and she supported him all those years as well. Whatever way you look at it, in her head, it's support. And then she has him killed. And then there's the police investigation afterwards, pinning that on her. That whole section there, that should have been that movie, to take her up to whenever she was done. And the effect on the daughters, because they actually had two daughters, because I only thought they'd one, and I looked it up. So there was, that film didn't start where it should have done. They had all this bloody diatribe going on beforehand, whereas the real story was, how was she done? That's what I wanted to know. How did they find out it was her in the end? Because it was 2 years before she was done.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I felt about it. It could have been put in such a better order to make it a more entertaining piece. I think I just think reordering it would have worked better. So maybe this is one of the things. I'll be intrigued to see what the director's cut is. I believe there is one coming. And it would be very interesting to see how that would play out. So I feel I enjoyed this film more than you did. I already kind of know that from things I've seen you mention already. But I can see the faults in it. So I'm going to say, what would you give it out of 5? But because you know I love you, you can give it a mark out of 10. It's good either way.
My mark out of 10 and my mark out of 5, well, I suppose pro rata would be less, right enough, than if it was out of 10. But let's just say I would give it 2.
Wow, on both?
On both.
Oh,
out of 10, that comes across as even worse, but I would give it a 2. I think this, I think as well, I'm even harder on this because I loved Halston so much. I fell in love with Halston. I fell in love with the character. I wanted to know more about his designs. You lived through his ups and downs, and there's times where he was really not a very good person, especially when he was off his tits and cocaine, which is really funny. But it must have been terrible for everybody around him and the friendships that he'd lost. But I was invested in his story. I had no investment in this at all. This just was like a punishment beating. I thought it was never going to end.
I mean, I can see what you mean on the fact that it you don't get invested in the people. You don't feel you can buy into their world. Now, I would give it probably a 3 out of 5. I might be able to give it more if there is another cut, even if it's, say, a longer film that gives you a bit more meat on the bones. And I liked it, and I'm not detracting from it, and I was intrigued watching it, but I just feel there could have been more to it. But an interesting side note, the Gucci company is now owned. There's no one involved from the Gucci family with it. It's owned as like one of these large private equity things, I think, owned by several firms. And who is one of the people who has real ownership over all this, along with other firms? Salma Hayek's husband.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
He's a billionaire. He owns lots of different companies, but falling in there is the Gucci company.
That's extraordinary.
It all comes full circle.
It does. I wonder is one of the snakes that she had round her waist that time and From Dusk Till Dawn now a handbag.
Well, as she hates snakes, it's certainly possible.
Yeah. Oh, what an image that was whenever she came out. Glorious woman.
Hot damn.
Yeah. My stepdad would watch that film an awful lot, and I think I know why. I
can't possibly imagine. It could be for the same reason that I really enjoyed the mud bath scene. But
yes,
I think that basically we've been talking of Codswallop, celluloid Codswallop. I think I'm going to need to have a lie down in a cold, dark room.
You're just going to go off and lick mud off some women, aren't you? Some older women.
Damn, you've read my mind. So,
and there must be something in that mud.
Absolutely. So on that bombshell, we have definitely been talking of Celluloid Codswallop. I'm indebted as ever to you, Joanne, for joining me to do this review. And
Grazie.
Yeah, I hope you have had an enjoyable time, and it's wonderful having you back on. It's wonderful to be back on doing the normal talking Codswallop that I did with Gemma that will be coming out, or may have already come out. Who knows? Time tunnel time. But yes, thank you for this. I hope you've all enjoyed the review. We have been talking of Celluloid Codswallop as ever. I am James.
I'm Joanne. Ciao, Bella.
Have a week, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.